Well, hello there, 12160 and you streamers. This is What's Week This Week, the short and brief weekend news, brought to you by 12160.info. First of all, we start with the week in sports. Many men in tight outfits around the world chased, fondled, hit, clubbed, and kicked their balls. Competition was often heightened during these events due to the fact that a couple of dozen men often seemed to have only one ball between them at any given time. Of particular note was a sporting event apparently called the Super Bowl, which was sponsored by many large corporations that paid millions to have their products advertised during the event. Coincidentally, this anchor had a Super Bowl of his own last night. The event was not sponsored by corporate America, but sales figures for local retailers of Cheetos and Ding Dongs did rise significantly. It's been reported that the two teams participated in the Super Bowl. One of them walked away with a championship and Super Bowl rings. The other was disappointed and will go home losers with nothing to show for their efforts except for fame, the adoration of the masses, and multi-million dollar paychecks. My condolences to them. In science this week, two doctors from the Texas Heart Institute announced that they had successfully replaced a dying man's heart with a device that delivers blood in a steady flow, proving that a person can live without a heart or even a pulse. Well, when asked about the importance of such a procedure, one of the doctors pointed out that their success finally offered independent, formal scientific verification of the informal results that have been obtained by Wall Street and the U.S. government over the last 30-some years. In other news on the home front this week, in the city of Everett, Washington, which is at Payne Field, which includes both an international airport and a Boeing plant, a Boeing employee was injured this week when a Boeing 787 ran over him while in tow, crushing the man's legs and pelvis beneath the landing gear. Homeland Security Czar Janet Napolitano issued a statement following the accident that landing gear would be added to the list of items banned from both international and domestic U.S. flights. Anybody caught trying to smuggle landing gear onto the flight will have landing gear confiscated and will then be forced to board the flight on a plane with no landing gear as punishment. The AP this week, Associated Press, appeared this week, in which some news organizations printed under the headline 11 injured in massive crowd for banned LMFAO. I have to tell you my immediate reaction was that this was a rather cruel and insensitive headline from the mainstream media, after all, who laughs at 11 people being injured. What does the MSM come up with next? Maybe 83-year-old grandmother falls down 2 flights of stairs, breaking hip and other bones, LOL. Perhaps toddler with Down syndrome attacked by killer bees, ROFL. Well, it turns out that LMFAO is actually the name of the band that was to perform at the concert that the 11 people were injured at. You can color me old, culturally retarded, or out of the loop as you will. Seems that Congress is demanding the FAA make room for the U.S. drone fleet as drones return to the U.S. from service in the Middle East. In addition to being cleared to fly in U.S. airspace, it is expected that Congress will grant them full veterans benefits, including treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. After Congress's demands were announced to the press, a congressional staffer was quick to point out that there's no truth to the rumor that Congress is calling the program Occupy the Skies over Occupy Wall Street. Rumor that, as it turns out, nobody had heard prior to its denial. In the UK, the BBC has been taking some flack this week for censoring the word Palestine from a broadcast of a freestyle performance by rapper Mike Righteous. In its broadcast, the BBC covered over the word Palestine with the sound of breaking glass. The BBC claimed that the reason the word was censored is that it was being used in the context of expressing a contentious political belief, that belief being that Palestine is not free. The BBC furthermore stated that in similar situations in the future, rather than using sound effects, they plan to replace the word with less biased terms such as Terrorstein or Shitholistan in the interest of objectivity. In business news, anti-union activists were shocked and dismayed this week as the results of a new study funded by the National Chamber of Commerce were released. The study shows that unionization levels among publicly traded corporations in the U.S. is at an all-time high of 100%, with stockholders across the board being represented in their collective bargaining efforts against individual workers by both corporate administrative staff and fleets of expensive legal teams. Labor leaders, both of them in fact, were remarkably less surprised by the study's results. More news from Washington State. A bill that would legalize gay marriage has passed the state Senate and will soon be voted on by the House. Some critics actually feel the law may be redundant due to the fact that many married Republican congressmen over the last dozen or so years have repeatedly demonstrated that it has always been legal for gays to get married in the U.S., just not to each other. This week, Ron Paul supporters are questioning the authenticity of Republican caucus results in Nevada, citing Ron Paul's overwhelming win in Clark County, the state's most populous county. In response to these concerns, the GOP has promised to appoint an impartial team of election monitors to oversee the caucus process and ensure a fair, free, and impartial caucus process. The GOP has chosen Vince McMahon to direct these efforts with the help of WWE superstars including Chris Jericho, The Big Show, Booker T, Jerry Lawler, and The Undertaker. Vince McMahon stated for the press that there is no truth to the rumor that there are already plans laid to jump Ron Paul in the parking lot just before the next big Republican matchup. In face of massive military spending, banker bailouts, and a failing economy, President Obama announced this week a new initiative today to decrease federal spending. The position of White House press secretary has now been eliminated. The White House press corps has been directed that from now on they should address their questions directly to Obama's teleprompter. And this week in Vermont, Vermont has taken the initiative against Monsanto and other biotechnology corporations in launching new legislation that would require the labeling of products containing genetically modified ingredients. The bill, known as the Vermont Right to Know Genetically Engineered Food Act, was introduced to the Vermont House of Representatives by Representative Kate Webb of Shelburne on February 1st, 2012. The bill would require the labeling of not only products filled entirely with GMOs, but also for those partially created using GMO ingredients. Perhaps most monumental is the fact that the legislation would prohibit GMO food manufacturers from using promotional labels like natural, naturally made, naturally grown, all natural, or any other words of similar import. When asked to comment about the legislation, a representative of Monsanto's GMO food division said, quote, unquote. Got some news from the TSA here today. A passenger screening program will be expanded to 28 select airports this week after having been tested at 7 other airports around the country. The program will allow certain passengers to pass through security without removing their shoes or belts. Now, under this program, eligible passengers will disclose more of their personal information than normal so that the TSA can vet them for security purposes prior to their arrival at the airport. The TSA will issue people approved by the program with a specially marked boarding pass, which will allow them to pass through security more easily. Not everybody is eligible for the program. Fortunately, I've obtained an application for the program that will help the TSA to determine if I qualify, as you can see here. So we'll just fill this out real quick. Okay, first of all, are you white? Got that one down. Okay, so far so good. It's right there, very. Are you affiliated with Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, the OWS, the Tea Party, the Quakers, the ACLU, or any other terrorist organization? Let's see, that would be no. What's your favorite color? Red, Oh, wait. Red, white, and blue. Trick question, very crafty TSA. Oh, CIA, they'll never crack that code. See, number 4, does Ted Nugent sometimes wonder out loud why you need so many guns? Well, not that I know of, no. Number 5, have you ever been convicted of resisting arrest due to twitching, vomiting, moaning, or having a seizure while a police officer tap danced on your throat? You'd think, but no. Let's see. Do you think you would enjoy being spanked with a flounder? I would prefer a cart, but sure. Okay. We'll just mail that off, and we'll see how that goes. So, I was looking at possibly taking some calls at the end of the show here, but I am feeling a little under weather for our premiere here, so I am going to let this go short and sweet, and I'll see you again next week on What's Week This Week from this freak. Thanks a lot. You have a good night.